July 21st, our 5 o'clock meeting. Tonight, the purpose of the statutory meeting is to consider the zoning bylaw amendment for the lands identified as 6655, the 6th concession. Call the meeting to order. We do have regrets from Councillor Kim Verbeek. She is away on vacation. And Councillor Hammond is here. He's on his way. We acknowledge that this land is a traditional territory of the Three Fires Confederacy First Nation, comprised of the Ojibwe, the Ottawa, and the Potawatomi peoples, and of the Huron-Wendat peoples. We value the significant historical and contemporary contributions of local and regional First Nations and of all the original peoples of Turtle Island who have been living and working on the land from time immemorial. At this time, I'd like to ask Council if there's any declarations of conflicts of interest. Seeing none, if you find yourself in conflict later, please let us know. I need a mover and a seconder for the adoption of the special council meeting agenda for Monday, July 21st for our special meeting. Moved by Deputy Mayor Shepley, supported by Councillor Guerin. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Moving on to reports from administration, we have Planning 2025-16, site-specific zoning bylaw amendment for 6655 6th Concession Road, and that is in Ward 3. We will go to our manager, Rita Jabor, here to walk us through the report. Welcome, Rita, and thank you.
Mayor, can I please have the presentation displayed on the screen? Thank you. So we're here tonight to consider a temporary zoning bylaw amendment for the property located at 6655 6th Concession Road in the town of Essex. We're going to explain what a temporary zoning bylaw amendment is because council doesn't normally receive applications for temporary amendments throughout the presentation. But first, we're going to begin with a general overview of the subject property. Next slide, please. So on this slide, you'll see the location of the subject property identified with a red star. The property is located in the former township of Colchester South. That's the area in green, and that is Ward 3. And it's within a prime agricultural area. Prime agricultural areas are all the lands that are outside of our growth areas. So all the lands that would be outside of Essex Centre, Harrow, McGregor, and the hamlet of Colchester. In prime agricultural areas, agricultural uses are the predominant use, but there's also other uses and other systems of natural heritage features and functions too that are characteristics of rural land uses. The subject property has 2 zoning designations and official plan designations. 27 hectares of the subject property is designated for agricultural use in the official plan and has a corresponding zoning district. It's agricultural district A1.1. So that's the general agricultural zone, which permits general agricultural types of uses. 71 hectares of the subject lands are designated wetlands in our official plan, and they have a corresponding zoning designation of wetland district 1.1 in the zoning bylaw. The area that's associated with the wetland is affected by the Essex Region Conservation Authority's limit of regulated area. Next slide, please. So on this slide, we delineate the subject lands with a blue dotted line. The area in brown that you see is the area of the wetlands, and the area that is not color-coded, that's a little bit clearer, is the area that is designated agricultural. The access to the subject lands is from the 5th concession and the 6th concession. Both of those roads are local roads, which are designed to carry lower volumes of traffic within a neighborhood and community and to provide direct access to properties. The main access for the subject lands is from the 6th concession road. And the 6th concession road, aside from being a local road, is owned and maintained by the town of Essex. It's a 2-way gravel road with a posted speed limit of 80 kilometers per hour. The lands have access to municipal water, which runs along the 6th and the 5th concession road, but there is no municipal sanitary servicing available along the 6th or the 5th concession road, so the property is serviced by a private on-site septic system, as is common in the agricultural area. Neighboring land uses include agricultural lots. Some of these lots contain wetland features, so you'll see outside of the blue dotted line that there are some neighboring lots that are adjacent to the subject lands that contain wetlands. And some of them contain environmental features that are not wetland, such as woodlots. And you'll see that on the map, color-coded in green. There are also homes existing directly east, west, and north of the subject lands on the 6th Concession Road. And as well, there are homes on the 5th Concession Road just south of the property. Next slide, please. So we're actually going to flip to the slide after that because it provides a better site plan, but includes the same information. Thank you. So on this slide, we talk a little bit about the existing buildings and structures that exist on the subject lands, and we give a better, clear aerial view of what's there currently. So the subject lands contain several existing buildings and structures that are located on the agricultural designated portion of the property. So none of these buildings and structures that exist are within the wetland portion. The buildings and structures that exist are namely a 850 square meter single unit house or dwelling, which is not the primary residence of the owner, but it's used as a residence for the owners and their guests when they're visiting the lands. The house is also rented out to members of the public, and it also holds a valid license to operate as a short-term rental from the town of Essex. There is also an existing 371 square meter permanent tent structure, which is accessory to the house. There is a 300 square meter outbuilding and a 45 square meter shed. And there's also a parking area for the accommodation of 58 vehicles. And you can see those structures and those buildings on the image that we have up on the slide. And there's also some notes as to what is what. Thank you. Next slide. So the main use of the property is agricultural. It is used primarily for agricultural purposes and primarily for the growing and harvesting of cash crops, which are common in the area, such as wheat, soybeans, and corn. The lands within the wetland are also used for passive recreation, such as bird and animal hunting, in accordance with licenses from the Ministry of Natural Resources. And as we mentioned earlier, the single unit dwelling is also operating as a short-term rental with a valid license from the town of Essex, and the license number is STR 2024-13. Thank you. Next slide. So in the next series of slides, we are going to discuss the reason why we're here tonight, the proposal to change the zoning. Next slide, please. So the proposed zoning change is to allow for a temporary event space as an on-farm diversified use, and we will delve into what an on-farm diversified use is in the next few slides. And that use is proposed within the existing tent structure that is located, and it's a little bit hard to see on the screen, in the area that is designated agricultural and outlined in green in the map in front of you. Now, this area, as you'll recall from the previous site plan, is an area that is close to the existing single unit dwelling and the other buildings, the building cluster existing around that tent structure. The zoning bylaw amendment, though, does not propose any uses, buildings, or structures within the area of the wetland. This is strictly within the area designated agricultural, existing close to the existing building structures on site. Next slide, please. So in this slide, we attempted to provide a photo of the proposed tent structure, and there were some people in the photo, so I guess that's why it's redacted. However, a photo of the tent structure is available in the planning justification report that is attached to the agenda in the noise memo. But as you can see, it's a metal tent structure, and it does include plastic filament around the structure, flaps that can be opened and closed. Next slide, please. So a bit more detail on the proposed event venue. The events are proposed to occur on a seasonal basis between the months of May to October. They occur primarily on the weekends. There is expected to be 10 events per season, and this is according to the applicant's information. The maximum number of guests that the tent can accommodate is 200 people, but according to the applicants, the number of guests at these events is often less than 200 people. The events include ceremonies, receptions, and live entertainment, primarily through an on-site DJ. The total number of vehicles entering and exiting the site, according to the applicants, is 30 to 40 vehicles. So as we mentioned earlier, the application is for a temporary zoning bylaw amendment, which would permit the use for a period of 6 months following the date of adoption of the bylaw. After the 6-month period, the bylaw permitting the use expires and the use must cease. This is different than a permanent application for a zoning bylaw amendment when a use is permitted in perpetuity if approved. The use is required to be temporary due to sanitary servicing constraints on the site. The applicants will be permitted to use portable washrooms for events for a period of 6 months only. If the applicants wish to allow the use on a permanent basis in the future, they would need to make another application for a permanent zoning bylaw amendment, at which time measures to address that sanitary servicing constraint must be demonstrated to the satisfaction of the town, and the use will need to be reevaluated to determine if it continues to meet provincial and municipal land use policy. Next slide, please. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about the reasons for the zoning bylaw amendment. So on-farm diversified use are commonly known as OFDUs. OFDUs are permitted in agricultural areas under the Town of Essex zoning bylaw, bylaw 1037, when they're together with a permitted agricultural use. They cannot be permitted without an agricultural component. However, they are limited to 90 square meters when they're located in an accessory building. So the proposed application is for an OFDU in a structure that is 371 square meters. Therefore, there is a need for a zoning bylaw amendment to permit an OFDU in a structure that is larger than 90 square meters. Additionally, the Town of Essex zoning bylaw states that for an OFDU, there cannot be any perceptible noise, odor, fumes, dust beyond the boundaries of the lot from the OFDU. So since the zoning bylaw amendment proposes a use for events where music is played and people assemble in a structure that does not have walls or insulation like a normal building, the zoning bylaw amendment is also required to measure the impact of noise from the use. So when determining what's perceptible, the intent of the zoning regulation is to ensure that the noise does not exceed regulations in the Town of Essex noise bylaw, that's bylaw 2422, and the ministry guidelines, and that is NPC 300, which is used to measure if noise is going to create any public health hazard. Next slide, please. Thank you. So as part of this application, the proponents were asked by the Town of Essex to prepare and submit the following support studies and reports. A planning rationale report, which is completed by a registered professional land use planner to demonstrate consistency with provincial planning statements and conformity with the County of Essex and Town of Essex official plan. They were asked to provide a noise and vibration assessment to evaluate and report on the expected noise and vibration impacts resulting from proposed uses in accordance with procedures outlined by ministry guidelines in Town of Essex bylaw 2422, and that was completed by a noise engineer. And they were also asked to provide an ecological policy and regulatory compliance memo to evaluate the impact of the use on the provincially significant wetland that's existing on the site and adjacent to the sites. And that was completed by a professional biologist. One of the reports that we did not ask for was a traffic memo, and that's because the expected number of vehicles in accordance with the information we received from the applicant was low. The number of events and timing of events was intermittent, which means it's not happening all the time. It's seasonal, it's temporary, and because there's no major intersections or high traffic generating uses nearby, that would create safety hazards as a result. Next slide, please. So in this slide, we just summarize the conclusions of those reports. The planning rationale report and the opinion of the registered professional planner on behalf of the proponent was that the proposal is consistent with the Provincial Planning Statement 2024 and conforms with the County of Essex, both the provisionally adopted and the in effect official plan, as well as the Town of Essex official plan. The results of the noise and vibration assessment expected worst case noise emission from the outdoor venue still complies with all provincial guidelines and the town's noise bylaw, provided that the sound power level does not exceed 107 decibels. I want to add here that the noise and vibration assessment report was also peer reviewed by the Town of Essex through our own professional noise engineer, and we'll speak to the results of that in the next slide. And as well, the conclusions of the ecological memo were that the zoning bylaw amendment is focused on events within an area that is far from the provincially significant wetland, involving no intrusion into the wetland. Therefore, there is no potential to negatively impact the wetland. And again, we procured a third opinion on this, and we will speak to that in the next slide. Next slide, please. Thank you. So as I mentioned, the planning rationale report, the town has reviewed its conclusions and completed an assessment of it and agrees with the conclusions of the planning rationale report, that it is consistent with the provincial planning statement and that it conforms with the County of Essex and Town of Essex official plan. And in the next few slides, we will detail the analysis that we undertook to ensure compliance. As with the noise and vibration assessment, the town did hire a third-party acoustic engineer to review the assessment and the conclusions. And the acoustic engineer hired by the Town of Essex agrees with the conclusions of that assessment. And as for the ecological memo, I'm sorry, I can't talk today. Ecological memo, the town has hired a third-party ecologist to review the conclusions of the memo, and they also agreed with those conclusions. Thank you. Next slide. So in the next series of slides, we are going to speak to the policy considerations that municipal councils, planning authorities have to consider when evaluating a zoning bylaw amendment. Next slide, please. Thank you. So the first piece of policy that council, municipal planning authorities must consider is a proposal's consistency with the provincial planning statement, which is the policies that the Government of Ontario requires for land use planning decisions. So specifically under section 4.3.2.1 of the PPS, that's the acronym for the provincial planning statement, OFDUs, on-farm diversified uses, are permitted uses and activities in prime agricultural areas. They are defined as uses that are secondary to the principal agricultural use of the property and are limited in area. And we will delve into both what it means to be secondary and limited in the next few slides. They're required to be compatible with and cannot hinder surrounding agricultural operations. And the criteria for these OFDUs are based on provincial guidance or municipal approaches which achieve the same objective. So what you'll see on this slide is a heavy emphasis on agriculture. There has to be an agricultural component to the property to permit an on-farm diversified use. And in terms of compatibility and any hindrances, it really does relate to surrounding agricultural operations, especially. They should not limit agricultural operations. Certainly dwellings on agricultural lots, when they're used to house farm laborers, farm workers, whether they own the property or not, are forms of agricultural uses. Next slide, please. So in terms of the provincial guidelines that help municipal authorities consider OFDUs, there are three that the Town of Essex has to consider. So the first are the guidelines on permitted uses in Ontario's prime agricultural areas. Now, these were published back in 2016 by OMAFA. They help decision makers interpret the policies of the provincial planning statement, specifically with respects to permitted uses in agricultural areas such as OFDUs. And they're meant to complement, be consistent with, and explain the intent of the PPS policies and definitions. There's also the County of Essex official plan, both the one that's in effect, which should be 2014, and the one that was provisionally approved but hasn't been approved fully yet by the province, which is 2024. And in considering what the county has to say about OFDUs, they are permitted, but they're subject to municipal criteria. So the county official plan leaves those policies to the local official plan and to the provincial planning statement in terms of analysis. And then finally, with respects to the town of Essex, the town of Essex official plan, which was published in 2009, permits OFDUs in prime agricultural areas when they are secondary to the principal agricultural use and subject to maximum lot coverage regulations in the zoning bylaw. The regulations in the zoning bylaw for OFDUs are to ensure farm operations are the main of the property. And finally, town of Essex official plan policies do permit OFDUs in an accessory building. So we will begin, if we can move on to the next slide, with the guidelines on permitted uses in Ontario's prime agricultural areas, because the first test is understanding whether the proposal is consistent with the PPS, and the guidelines will help us determine that. So in terms of the guidelines, they state that OFDUs should be supportive of agriculture or able to coexist with agriculture without conflict. And on this slide, you'll see that we underlined the able to coexist with agriculture without conflict, because clearly the proposed use is not supportive of agriculture, but it doesn't have to be. So the guidelines provide examples of uses that typically would not be considered an OFDU. And those would include uses that require high water and sewage needs, that generate significant traffic, such as large, frequent volumes of traffic to and from a site that may cause public safety hazards due to proximity to busy intersections and other high traffic generating uses. And anything that's large scale in terms of needing a lot of water, a lot of sewage, creating a lot of traffic would be considered large scale and recurring in terms of them being permanent and on a daily basis. And again, with permanent structures. So seeing that, there could be a wide variety of uses that may qualify as an on-farm diversified use if they meet the established criteria. Next slide, please. Thank you. So in the next series of slides, we're going to go through each of the criteria, and we are going to relate them to the proposed use. So the first criteria is that the on-farm diversified use must be located on a farm. There must be some agricultural activity occurring, and that agricultural activity must be the predominant use of the property. Now, when it comes to an agricultural use and determining whether an OFDU can be established, the agricultural use has to actually produce a crop that is for gain or reward. So there has to be income made from the farm. It cannot be for recreational purposes or for the sole consumption of the household. So in this case, we know that the lands are used primarily for agricultural production. 27 hectares are used for agricultural use specifically, and the types of crops that are grown on these lands are considered cash crops and are therefore grown for the purpose of gain or reward. So with respects to this criteria, the proposed use satisfies it. Next slide, please. The second criteria you must consider is whether that OFDU is secondary to the principal agricultural use of the property. Now, when we're discussing whether an OFDU is secondary, that is measured in both spatial terms and temporal terms. So space and frequency. The spatial considerations will be considered in the next criteria number 3, but with respects to temporal terms, the use is proposed temporarily for a seasonal period of 6 months. It must cease following this period. The bylaw that has been drafted would not allow events following October 31st. The use will occur intermittently throughout the week, primarily on weekends and in evening hours when cropping activities are less common. The use is proposed in an area that is not under cultivation. The parking area is not paved and can be used for agriculture when the use ceases. There's no site grading or drainage works required. The traffic levels are expected to be reasonable. Noise emissions, according to the noise assessment and the peer review, will not exceed ministry guidelines or town bylaws. And the use will not require significant water or wastewater services, cooking facilities, or emergency services as a temporary event space. So in terms of satisfying the secondary criteria, the proposed use, in the opinion of administration, is satisfied. Next slide, please. The third criteria is whether the OFDU is limited in area, and this is when we must consider spatial terms. So the criteria intended to minimize land taken out of agricultural production. That's why this criteria is there, is to ensure that agriculture is not adversely affected. There is emphasis on ensuring agriculture remains the main use of the land, and any limits to offsite impacts to ensure compatibility with surrounding agricultural operations. So in this case, the use is located in an existing accessory structure. The total area of the structure, parking area, lodge, is equal to less than 1.2% or 0.33 hectares of total land area. Now, this includes the area of the lodge, but the lodge is not in question in this application. The guidelines actually recommend that the standard acceptable area for an OFDU is up to 2% to a maximum of 1 hectare. So in terms of the proposal, it satisfies this criteria. Next slide, please. The next criteria is that the OFDU includes, but is not limited to, home occupations, home industries, agritourism uses, and uses that produce value-added agricultural products. The PPS provides for several examples of what an OFDU may be. Beyond these examples, there's other uses which may also be suitable, subject to meeting the criteria. The uses, at minimum, must be at a reasonable scale. And as demonstrated in criteria 2, 3, and 5, the proposed use is at a reasonable scale and is suitable as an OFDU. Next slide, please. So this is the last criteria. And this criteria relates to how the OFDU is compatible with and does not hinder surrounding agricultural operations. So when referring to surrounding agricultural operations, we're referring to property on which the use is located. So the subject lands, the agricultural operations on those lands, and the area of potential impact around the property. The proposed use will not have any impact on the continuation of agricultural practices without impairment or inconvenience on the subject lands or around the subject lands. The use is appropriate to the available rural services. The use will continue to maintain the agricultural rural character of the area, and the proposed use meets all applicable provincial and municipal noise standards as demonstrated in the noise assessment. The proposed use will not undermine the agricultural nature of the area. Next slide, please. So in this summary of slides, we're going to speak to the agency and public comments that we received on this application. Next slide, please. As part of Ontario regulation, we are to circulate all property owners within 120 meters of the subject lands. So on the map in front of you, any property that is delineated in blue means it's within the 120-meter radius and that they received direct notice. Now, a sign is also required to be posted in front of the property so that passerbys are advised of the application. And of course, notice of the application is also posted on our municipal website. As a result of that circulation, we did receive 4 formal comments, and that was as of July 16th, just last week. And next slide, please. In this slide, we just summarized the formal comments, the results of the formal comments that we received. So one comment expressed support for the proposed use because in their opinion, the use had less of an impact than some permitted agricultural uses, such as greenhouses. One comment was from a neighbor residing 1,800 meters from the subject lands, expressing concerns with the use's impact on the agricultural rural character of the area, and particularly from noise generation. One comment expressed concerns with the proposed use's impact on the environment, and one comment expressed support for the proposed use because of its positive effect on local businesses. Of course, there have been some additional comments received at the Town of Essex since the date of publishing the presentation, and those comments have been forwarded to Council. Next slide, please. So in addition to public notice, we must also serve notice on internal and external agencies to the Town of Essex. And in this slide, you'll see a summary of the comments we received from those individual departments. We didn't receive any objections from the Town of Essex Infrastructure Services Department. We circulated the Town of Essex Building and Bylaw Enforcement Division and we received no comments. The Town of Essex Community Services Department, no comments. Town of Essex Corporate Services, no comments. Town of Essex Fire Services, no comments. Accessibility Committee, no comments. We also circulated the Essex Region Conservation Authority, who filed comments stating no objections. They had no concerns with stormwater management, and therefore the development did not require a permit from their office. The development is proposed outside of the area of the parcel affected by their limit of regulated area, and that is the area of the wetland. We also circulated our First Nations, being the Chippewa, the Tams First Nations, as well as Caldwell First Nations, and we received no comments. And we also circulated the County of Essex Planning Division and received no comments from them as well. Next slide, please. So in the final slides, we're going to talk about next steps. Next slide. Thank you. The next steps is a report to council and proposed bylaw, which has been prepared for this meeting. At this meeting, council may fully adopt bylaw 2464 for 3 readings, provisionally adopt bylaw 2464 for 2 readings, where the 3rd and final reading is read at the August 11th council meeting, defer bylaw 2464 in its entirety until August 11th or a subsequent council meeting if more information is required or if significant concerns are raised, or deny bylaw 2464 where notice of denial will be sent to the applicant and all persons requesting to be notified of the decision and a 20-day appeal period takes effect. Staff's recommendation tonight is to provisionally adopt bylaw 2464 as outlined in the staff report for 2 readings with a final reading at the August 11th council meeting. Next slide, please. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Manager Jabbour, we are going to keep going through all of our delegates just because we do have a regular council meeting tonight. So moving on, we're going to go to representatives from 6655. And you can, I don't know which order you wish to proceed in. Make your way back to the delegation, hit the mic. Welcome, Ms. Lasley.
Afternoon, Your Worship and Council. I'll try to eliminate some of my redundancies. Thank you, Rita. That was excellent. I concur with everything Rita indicated. There was a presentation that got sent in. There we are. The left. Thank you. So the Hearn family are requesting a temporary use bylaw to allow for a special events tent to accommodate 10 special events a year. The temporary use bylaw, as Mr. Jabbour indicated, will not remove the agricultural zone or provisions, nor will it remove the wetland provisions. We'll just add the use as an additional temporary use. Next slide, please. The subject property, one of the largest properties in the town of Essex, with 245 acres of land. The property has 2 separate land uses on it. There's wetlands comprising approximately 100 acres and the agricultural lands that are approximately 67 acres. Next slide, please. The agricultural zoning and wetland zoning will remain, as I indicated, with the on-farm diversified use as an added temporary additional use for the agricultural area only. Barry Mylar from Mylar Consulting was on site evaluating the wetlands for us and also evaluated the area adjacent to it, known as the buffer area to the wetlands. The main question he had to answer was, is there any impact of the proposed on-farm diversified use to the wetlands or the buffer area? He concluded in his professional opinion, there will not be any impacts on the wetlands. Next slide, please. Now, Rita went into great detail about the on-farm diversified use and defining it. I'm not going to duplicate her findings. I'm going to merely provide a summary of my opinion. So the on-farm diversified use must be located on a farm, is easily identified. It is a farm of 68 acres approximately. The secondary use to a farming use, as indicated, the on-farm diversified use is compact. The agricultural area can be considered a spatially minor use of the agricultural land use. And the on-farm diversified use will only have 10 events occurring annually. The special events, tent, and activities can be considered secondary, therefore, to the farming use. 3, will it be limited in area? This can be answered with a definitive yes, with 0.33 hectares being used for the on-farm diversified use, calculated out at 1.2% of the agricultural lands. As indicated by the manager as indicated by the manager Jabour, 1.2% of the agricultural lands will be used for the on-farm diversified use. My professional opinion, this is very limited in area. Number 4, as specified, beyond these examples that are identified in the OMAFRA guideline, additional uses are appropriate when meeting the criteria as Ms. Jabour outlined. And in my professional opinion, the wedding event tent will meet all standards of the PPS, and the Hearn example can be considered an appropriate on-farm diversified use. The tent is distance separated from the farming, and there will be no negative impact on the farming operations. In addition, Dr. Colin Novak, who's here this evening, from Acoustic Engineering, provided an acoustical report, indicated the site is in compliance with bylaw 2422. Town noise bylaw specifies 11 p.m. the noise levels must be below 55, and after 11 it must be below 40 decibels. Dr. Novak's report indicated the Hearns are able to hold special events below these standards of decibels, with report peer-reviewed by JJ Acoustics, also supporting Dr. Novak's report. Therefore, in my professional opinion, the proposed temporary use can be considered an appropriate on-farm diversified use. Next slide, please. Parking will be in compliance with the zoning bylaw. For parking requirements, as indicated, there is going to be 30 to 40 cars during an event. There are buses that will bring people, and there's a lot of carpooling that occurs coming to these weddings. Also, there's overflow parking should it be required. Next slide, please. There is on site a 6-foot or a 6-meter high berm at the interior side yard, as you can see in the first picture up at the top. 6-meter high berm running the interior side yard adjacent the existing residence that's on the other side of the wood. The soil berm provides for additional noise buffering to this existing residence. There's a front berm, as you can see in the bottom picture. Front berm approximately 8 meters in height, running the entire frontage of the property, screening the use from the road. Next slide, please. The next neighbor is approximately 755 feet away from the proposed tent. In addition to distance separation, there are other factors in reducing the noise. There are owner controls on the music. There's a 6-meter berm, as I indicated, and an 8-meter berm along the front property line. Speakers are located within the tent with walls, providing for a barrier. The woodlot between the event tent and the adjacent landowner provides for screening, and no live bands are allowed at the different events. Therefore, the noise is controlled. Next slide, please. So in addressing some of the public comments that I was able to receive through the comments over the package that was circulated on Friday, I will try to address some of these quickly. As I indicated, there's 30 to 40 cars that will be in attendance. The attendants are limited to 200 people. There's carpooling and a rented bus system that's provided for the attendees. Parking has been designed in compliance with the bylaw, and there are areas for overflow parking. Only 10 events will occur in a year. They're not occurring multiple over a weekend. They're not occurring multiple during the week as suggested. There's distance separation, noise controlled measures by the owner, berm providing noise barriers. The residence is located in a woodlot, keeping speakers in the tent, etc., that help reduce the noise. Acoustics engineering has studied the noise and determined the events are under the allowable levels as established by accurate measuring equipment. OMAFRA has provided for on-farm diversified uses, such as special events under conditions as identified that this is in compliance. There is no impact on the wetland, and the use is well separated from that sensitive land use. Next slide, please. The noise bylaw, as discussed from both Ms. Jabbour and myself, allows for time frame and decibels allowable. The events were tested, undertook a study of this noise by Dr. Novak of Acoustics on June 28th, 2025. And in summary, he states, the noise levels at the nearby sensitive receptor produced by a typical outdoor event at the Hearn Hunting and Fishing Lodge meet the Town of Essex noise bylaw limits. The events are therefore in compliance with that noise bylaw. Next slide, please. These show some of the decibel levels that were received at that event. So, in conclusion, it's my professional opinion that the use of an on-farm diversified use conforms with land use policies of OMAFRA and is consistent with the PPS. The on-farm diversified use conforms with official plan policies of both the County of Essex and the Town of Essex. The use complies with the bylaw, and the use can be considered sound land use. I'm available to answer any questions.
We're going to attempt to hold questions to the end.
Okay.
Have a tight agenda, but we do have other representatives from 6655. We have Stephen Hearn, Ben Gaines, Brian Chillman, Colin Novak. Is there any other members of that group that wish to speak to council? Okay, Mr. Novak, please go to the back. Mr. Novak, how much time do you believe you need? Okay, 5? Start at 5. Okay, welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship. My name is Dr. Colin Novak. I'm a principal with Acoustic Engineering. I didn't prepare a presentation. I think the initial report dated in March of this year that was peer reviewed by the town's engineer, for the most part, speaks for itself. However, I do understand that sometimes these reports that use predictive modeling can sometimes open up certain doors of questions. So it was decided that, or I was asked to measure the sound levels at 2 different events. Ms. Lastney spoke about the first event on June 28th, where we set up a monitor for 3 days, and looking at the values during the event, all of the levels during the day, the evening, and the few hours into the nighttime complied with the Town of Essex bylaw. We also set up monitoring this past weekend for another event. The evening hour levels also complied with the bylaw, but then into the second half of the evening and into the night, the data was contaminated for various reasons, so we weren't able to use that data, but the good data did comply. And when it's time for questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you, Mr. Novak. Okay, if we could, we need to make sure that we can get through the meeting. Okay, Brian Chillman, okay. And that will be the last speaker for the representatives, and then we'll move on to the community representatives. Brian, you have 5 minutes.
I did have one additional, but we've decided not to have them speak in the efforts of time. My name is Brian Chillman, Your Worship, council members. I'm here to present what I think are key considerations for council to consider in making the decision here tonight. And what I'd really urge council to look at and to pay attention to is what they heard, and not just what they heard from the applicants, but what they heard from the professionals, what they heard from your own town staff, and what they hear from your own professionals that have been retained to review some of the information that's been provided by the applicant. So you've heard that the use of the Hearn Lodge tent for is an appropriate on-farm diversified use. You heard that from Ms. Jabor, planner. You've heard that from Ms. Lassaline, who is a planner. You're going to hear, I am sure, some information about the events that are held. Again, they are not every weekend. We know that there are 10 in number annually. They're not held multiple in a week, once a week. I think what I'd like to focus on here is that the venue, really, it's the intention of the clients who I act for, which is the Hearn Group, is to have a boutique venue for high-end weddings. So they don't want large-scale weddings. They have the capability to have more people. They've limited to 200, and often they're less than that. Events close at 12 p.m. Last call is 11, or bar closes at 11:45, and music is off by 12. Again, you've heard from about the wetland. The use of the tent facility as a on-farm diversified use does not impact the wetland designation. We're clear on that. Our biologist said it. Your biologist said it. Talk a little bit about noise. You've heard Mr. Collins speak about the noise study that was done. Want you to keep in mind the noise studies were conducted during times when tent pavilion was in use. The findings, again, Mr. Jamor referred to them. The expected worst case noise emissions from the outdoor venue comply with all requirements of the town's bylaw number 2422 and provincial guideline. Now, you are still going to hear some comments about noise, and I just want to read a comment that was in the report. Given the remote location of this facility, it is not unreasonable to expect sound emitted from the outdoor venue may be audible at the residence in question, which is the nearest residential home to the property. However, the sound emitted remains below the typical summertime soundscape for a rural area and significantly lower than typical, even lower than typical insect noise level that would be present during the summer. So I'm thinking cicada, the cicada noise, you're going to hear that would be louder than what you might hear from the wedding venue or from the special events wedding. We heard about a traffic study. It wasn't requested. One thing I want to add as to why it might not have been requested as well. Many people, because of the location of this property, events, they attend it by transportation set up by the event host. So for instance, they might take a bus from Devonshire Mall out to this area. Think about how the wineries are bringing people in for wedding events, shuttles back and forth to hotels. So many are attending in groups, and some of it through transportation supplied by the person who's holding the event. Stephen Hearn was going to speak about some of the other things to consider, the employment opportunities this creates, the ancillary money spent in Essex for flowers, weddings, supplies, overnight accommodations, gas purchases, food, all of those things. If you look at what happened in Kingsville with the ancillary businesses, restaurants, overnight accommodations, that's the kind of thing that this can drive. The last thing I ask you to consider, and I think this is a consideration you should take to heart, is the legal consideration. We respectfully submit there's no legal basis on which to deny the application today. We believe if we appeal this to the OLT, we have a strong case based on what we just talked about to proceed. Your own professionals supported it. Your own staff supported it. Our professionals supported it. Not one agency gave a negative comment about it. There is a case that's referred to in Ms. Lassaline's report. It's a city of Kawartha Lakes case. And this involved, just bear with me for 1 minute, it was a 100-acre site. It had dual designation, so agriculture and environmentally protected woodlot, different than ours, which is a wetland. The existing farm operation was cash crop, just like ours. The barn on the subject property, the owner proposed to use it for workshops, gallery space, special events, including weddings. The applicants that appealed to the OLT were against it. They were against approving it because it was approved by City of Kawartha Lakes. The OLT denied the appeal by those opposed, found the proposed uses to be consistent with the PPSA and the city's official plan and zoning bylaw, as we did with our two planners, met the 5 criteria of an on-farm diversified use, the 5 tests. And that's all I want to say. So thank you. Any questions, I'm happy to answer them at the time.
Thank you, Mr. Chilman. And I know that the rest of you are here in case any other questions come up when we get to that. We will now move to delegates from the community. We do have a virtual delegate. We have Corey St. Orange and Valerie Sampson. They are joining us virtually this evening. Welcome, Corey.
Thank you. Am I good?
Oh, yeah. Corey,
Okay.
can you turn your camera on? And then once you start, you have 5 minutes.
Okay, there we
There
go.
we go. Perfect.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I've taken time from my family vacation to be here, although I wish I could have been there in person. I live approximately 1,700 meters from the proposed site, and I am here to oppose it. This application does not meet the policy framework and regulatory requirements established by the town of Essex bylaw 1037, nor does it align with the intent criteria of OMAFRA guidelines permitted uses in prime agricultural areas. Publication 851. I will focus my comments today on 4 key planning-based objections. The proposal violates the intent of the intent and standards of on-firm diversified use zoning section 8.6 zoning bylaw 1037 defines clear conditions on-firm diversified use. They must be secondary in nature to a principal agricultural use. They must be limited to a maximum gross floor area of 90 square meters. They must not adversely affect the surrounding properties. This proposal fails all 3 points. The proposed 317 square meter event tent exceeds the proposed maximum by 3.5 times. Granting such relief sets a dangerous precedent and undermines the purpose of having zoning limits. The commercial event use is the dominant activity on the site, not an accessory to farming. The agricultural use is minimal, a small hayfield and cornfield. And also, after reviewing the site, the property clearly shows a property line on all maps from the town of Essex showing that the property being farmed is an unaddressed parcel of land to the east, not part of 6655-6 Concession Road. That parcel is addressed as 0 5th Concession Road property, which means every calculation that you have seen tonight has been falsified by all parties. The scale and nature the use inherently creates adverse impacts, including elevated traffic, increased parking demand, amplified sound, and the potential for disruption to the rural character. There are notable discrepancies between the town's planning report and the applicant's consultant report. The town report refers to 40 to 50 vehicles parking. However, Lassling's report includes a site plan that clearly delineates an 85 vehicle gravel parking lot. This lot includes accommodations for shuttle buses, which indicates an expectation of higher traffic volumes than admitted. The town also references fewer than 10 events per year, yet the zoning amendment would legally allow for events every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday between May 1st and October 31st. That's 52 event days annually. There's no enforceable caps proposed on the zoning amendments. These contradictions cast serious doubt on the operational scale and intent. As council knows, zoning follows the land, not the owner. The zoning amendment would open the doors to continuous seasonal commercial use, regardless of what is promised now. This application fails the provincial test on-farm diversified use. According to OMAFRA, publication 851, on-farm diversified use be clearly secondary to a legitimate agricultural operation, be limited in area, typically not exceeding 2%, but in this case, 90 square meters, and not generate adverse impact on surrounding lands with normal farm practices. This proposal fails all 3 tests. There's no real farming happening on this property. There's no animals being raised, no crops being harvested, aside from a small hayfield, nothing being produced that you can actually sell as farm goods. Instead, the lands function primarily as a commercial venue. The 317 square meter tent and associated infrastructure, including the large gravel parking lot, portable toilets, generator space, and reception staging area greatly exceeds what's considered limited in area. The use would create material off-site impacts, particularly sound, light, and light pollution. Let me explain. I live 1.7 kilometers away, and I hear these events at nighttime. Additionally, OMAFRA clearly warns that commercial wedding venues, such as wedding facilities, often do not qualify as an appropriate on-farm diversified use unless they meet all policy criteria. This one does not. This application is framed as temporary, but the town and the town's applicant planner acknowledge the intent to pursue a more permanent amendment after the 6-month trial. We must consider the following risk. If approved, this application becomes precedent setting for similar commercial uses in agricultural zones. Council will be hard pressed to deny any future applications on similar grounds, granting significant relief from the zoning bylaw, particularly the maximum area restriction will erode public trust in the laws, enforceability, and lead to an inconsistent application. It's not enough to say that there will only be 10 events per year. If the zoning allows 52, council must assume 52. Good planning is not about what an applicant promises today, it's about what the zoning will permit tomorrow. This proposal fails to satisfy both local and provincial planning criteria. It contradicts the town's own bylaw.
Thank you, Corey. Thank you very much. You got it in right about the 5-minute mark.
I have
Moving
more.
on. Okay, well, you'll have to send it in written.
Can
We
I
have
speak?
Mike. Oh,
Am I allowed to have 5 minutes? I'm Valerie Sampson.
yes. As long as you don't repeat what is already said.
Not at all.
Okay. Welcome,
Mayor,
Valerie.
hi, Mayor and members of council. My name is Valerie Sampson. I'm a resident of Pleasant Valley, and I'm here today to express my strong opposition to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment for 66556 Concession Road. While my husband has addressed the technical planning issues, I want to speak today about the human impact on our families, our safety, and our quality of life. This proposal would permit commercial weddings every weekend for 6 months of the year, with up to 200 guests per event and parking for 85 vehicles. We will see a dramatic increase in traffic on our quiet roads. Our children walk and ride their bicycles along these routes. We do not have sidewalks, streetlights, or traffic enforcement. Adding dozens of unfamiliar drivers, some possibly impaired, introduces a significant risk to children, families, cyclists, and pedestrians. When events end late in the evening, especially when alcohol is served, it increases the risk of impaired driving and late night disturbances. No traffic or safety mitigation measures have been proposed. This isn't just an inconvenience, it's a threat to public safety in our peaceful community. The sound coming from the property can carry across long distances in our quiet valley. While a sound report was submitted, I have questions on how accurate and representative those numbers really are. Was the DJ playing at full volume during the test? Were the speakers placed where they would be for a real event? Or were they just positioned to minimize output? Real weddings are loud, people cheer, music plays, speeches are made. And it's very possible that the report was designed to show the best case scenario, not the real world experience that nearby families would actually endure every weekend for 6 months. We understand that the property owners have invested money into their venue, hired professional consultants, but money and influence should not override the lived-in experiences and valid concerns of local residents. Just because someone has the means to pay for a planner and a lawyer does not mean their version of events is more accurate or more important than ours. In fact, let's acknowledge something uncomfortable. The owners are not just event hosts. They also operate a hunting lodge. Sorry, I'm very nervous. They have access to a large number of firearms, and while I don't believe they pose a direct threat, it may intimidate some residents into staying silent. It's a difficult thing to say, but I think it needs to be said. I'm here today because I believe in this community. I believe my voice has power as a woman, as a mother, and as someone who wants all children in Pleasant Valley to feel safe. I'm speaking for those who are afraid to speak, for those who fear the consequences of speaking out, and for families who want to remain safe and to feel like they are living in a welcoming place. We pay significant taxes to live in Pleasant Valley. We choose this area for its peace, beauty, and quiet charm. Allowing a commercial wedding venue just down the road directly threatens that investment. Our property values will go down, but our taxes won't. This proposal introduces noise, traffic, lighting, and disruption every single weekend for 6 months. That is not a compatible use for an agriculture area. This is not what Pleasant Valley was meant to be, and it's certainly not what we pay for. This is not an armless or temporary request. It has the potential to reshape our neighborhood permanently. Once this zoning amendment is granted, there's no easy way to take it back. It stays with the land. Please stand with the families of Pleasant Valley. Please protect our children, our investments, and the peaceful way of life this community offers. Thank you so much.
Moving on to, we have Mike Jarowski, I'm probably not saying it right, and Jane Obet. Yes, please go to the back. If you can try to not say something that has been repeated, just for the sake of time. Welcome.
Good evening, Council and Your Worship. My name is Jane, and I'm here this evening with my husband, Mike, to express our opposition to permit, sorry, I'm nervous now, for a temporary event space at 66556 Concession. We are directly east of the property in question. We're 6675. Since May 2023, we have experienced a significant decline in our quality of our environment due to the continuous and persistent noise emanating from the venue on weekends. The situation has led to increased anxiety and stress, particularly as each weekend approaches. We believe that this ongoing disturbance constitutes an invasion of our personal space and a violation of our mental well-being. To better understand whether others share our concerns, I, with the assistance of my neighbor Robin, canvassed the key area indicated on the map provided by the town of Essex in the public meeting notification, which I will show you that in the presentation on page 2. My presentation will outline the opposition's argument, both for the same reasons previously discussed here and the additional reasons. So within this key area map, this is what was given to the town. The town put it up as a notice. I took this key map and I added my address 6675 because they had failed to put the address on there. So within this key map, this is the 5th and the 6th concession in McCormick. And I can't see that far, but hold on, give me 1 second. So within the key map area, there are 9 households that signed the petition with 11 unique signatures. Out of those 9 households, 7 can clearly hear the noise from their property. Within the key map area, there were 4 households that did not answer, and 2 properties appear to be farmland. 1 household did not sign and was requesting more information from the town, which I do now believe that person is supporting. Outside of the key map area, there are 8 households that signed with 16 unique signatures, and out of those 8 households, 6 can clearly hear the noise from their property. Out of those we spoke to, only 1 property reported receiving a notice of complete application and public meeting from the town. So I took it upon myself to make sure all the 5th and 6th concession in these key areas received the notice so that they could be well informed in it. So if you want to go to the next additional petition. So with this additional petition, it's a similar petition with the neighbors of Essex was conducted. Residents resided within the Harrow and Colchester area, and there were 9 signatures. I'm sure there would have been more if we could have went on. But they're also opposing the land use changes. So this more or less will emphasize a widespread concerns of the residents of Essex County. And if we can go to the appendix material, with the first one, unfortunately, we weren't allowed to hand in, oh, I'm sorry, excuse me. So the overview, the residents have signed a petition opposing the request to permit a temporary event space under the farm diversified use designation. The event space will be used primarily for the wedding hostings. Their concerns reflect both quality of life, public safety, and environmental properties. So we need to keep that in consideration when we're talking about this petition. In the appendix, we have an attached video, which we weren't able to attach because it wasn't accepted into the presentation. But these videos that we've had as neighbors were taken over an 18-month period, because if you are not there to actually hear it, you won't understand it. And I'm not going to go on with that any further. Can you turn to the next? Well, that's our petition. And this is wedding events. So this was made public in May 2023. Go to the next one. That shows it there at the top that this has been going on since May 2023. At the top, you'll see the date. So we've had to endure this. The next slide is just a sample of where our home is and where the tent is. And if you actually look just to see the difference in home size, and we don't have a tiny home, but we have a 2,000 square foot home, and the distance is quite close. 200 meters is close. And these noise acoustics and valuations and whatever else, to me, it's destructive. Like, I'm living next door to it, and it's, unless you're there and you physically hear it every single weekend, and it could go on for 8 to 10 hours, you will not understand the true existence of it. And also with the tent, I mean, the tent is not an enclosed structure. So, the loud music and the large crowds become, overbearing after a while. The one thing I'm going to, I did mix up, didn't I? I'm sorry. Can I have just one more minute? I don't believe I went through the overview. Did I go through the overview?
You,
Okay, please look at that.
Mike, are you going to speak at all? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Mike, I just wanted to let you know you have almost 3 minutes.
Oh, they said we could have 10 each. I mean, 5 each. Go ahead.
Well, this is the last thing I really wanted to be at, is a council meeting talking about my neighbor's problems and vice versa. So I woke up one day and I had Studio 54 beside me. That's kind of what took place. The reality of a banquet hall, which is put into the on-farm description, and it says typically not for this use. I think the semantics of not understanding that part is really important, because when I called over to Ken Bott at the rural planning of the Ministry of Resources, he defined it pretty quickly. He said, look, there's 2 parts to a wedding. We have the first ceremony, which is quiet, everyone's throwing rice and it's happy. And I think that's the luster that everyone sees in a wedding venue. But they forget the back end. The back end is the reception. And that's where the party starts. So we endure that for, anywhere from 4 to 10 hours every weekend. Now, with all the acoustics report, the one thing I can tell you that changes that very quickly is the 12 bylaw calls with the 1 ticket that was given, the number of OPP, I think it's up to 9 or 10. But in speaking with my other neighbors, if I do the math off my top of my head, there's almost 20 bylaw reports. That's a lot. That's a lot for a neighborhood to say, we can hear you quite clearly, and enough that it's bothering us to pick up a phone or write some sort of an email or file a report. No one just wants to do that. I don't. The last thing I want to do on a Friday, Saturday. So if you have to do a number of them, it must be that irritating. So we can soft sell this all day on paper and box it in, but the reality of it is the neighborhood is feeling it. Myself, very much so. It's a struggle to actually have a family dinner. We have to actually compete over top of the sound. It's like having a microphone going off in your ears quite often. If we move indoors and the windows are open, forget it. It's coming in that way. And then there's the vibration that everyone just kind of fully forgets. It bounces around on your floors. It's like those cars that drive by. That's what you feel, but ongoing. Now, we've asked them very politely over time, please, you can just dial it back a bit. And I think the moment gets caught up, like a wedding it would, right? Everyone's excited. They're having a good time. That problem, though, now bleeds on to us. We find ourselves constantly negotiating with bylaw and their confusion, police and their confusion. No one wants to touch this because of the shiny glitter of a wedding. We scrape off a little bit of veneer and there's all the problems. And there's lots of them, as you can see in this room. And they pour out pretty quickly. I'm not going to take too much of your time, but I really cannot stress to you enough that the sound is reflective in the amount of actual bylaw and OPP calls that do have event numbers and are logged into your systems. Yes.
That was collectively 10 minutes. So just hang around here. Council might have questions for you. Just turn off the mic there, Mike.
Mike?
At this point, I need a motion from council to extend the special council meeting into our regular council meeting. Moved by Councillor Allard, supported by Councillor Mady. Any questions? All in favor? And that opposed, and that is carried. Moving on, we have Robin and Jeff Totten. You know the drill. Go to the back, turn on the mic. Collectively, you get 10 minutes or 5 minutes if only one person is speaking. And, oh, sorry, Robin, your mic, and make sure you're speaking. Okay. No, you need it. You need it. It has to. We are on YouTube and it needs to be pertinent to the file, and try not to duplicate anything we've already said.
Okay. Okay, I'm Robin Totten. I'm a second generation owner. I live on the other side of the conservation area from the property in question. First of all, I'm not going to call this an application, and they're not applicants, because those are a prey. That means before this has already been built, we have been tormented for 18 months. Okay. Somehow, when I brought it to council's attention on the first open mic night for the mayor and complained about the extensive website held in that is online, it went down within hours. So I think that we have a conflict of interest somewhere. Might not be financial, but anyways. But nothing disappears on the web. Okay. I agree totally with everything that Corey said. Corey's a planner. Okay. I have pored over OMAFRA. This is not what I wanted to spend my retirement doing, but this is worth fighting for. I don't know how many things have to be wrong with a property, how many conditions for it not to be recommended. They've already said the septic isn't sufficient and that they have to bring outhouses. They've already said it's a low class E traffic area, which means like, have you ever been on the 6th concession or the Coulter side road? Those ditches, they're not fender benders, they're fatal. Okay, you already have a problem at the corner of 15 and 18. You're going to have people coming flying down 18 and making a hard right onto the Coulter, and they come right into the oncoming traffic. Also, too, as Corey said, it's conflicting. First, it's 30 to 40 cars, then it's 50, then it's 70. And I just want to explain the math to you, because like I research when I'm talking to people, I want to know who I'm talking to. I read the CBC interview with all of you guys why you should be elected. There aren't any farmers or agricultural people. If I'm wrong, if you live on a farm, but you all listed yourself business and things like that.
We just have to keep it related to the,
Okay. So, but what I'm saying is, in OMAFRA, it says clearly that you're supposed to have an agricultural committee that you rely on to prevent situations like this where people are fighting with each other. Okay, so anyway, so we get back to the traffic. Okay, so 30 to 40 cars. This is why I'm going to do math. For 200 people, that means that between 5 and 7 people are coming each car. Okay, low traffic is not buses or minivans. Also, too, they try to say that everything is going to be serviced by vans. You can't serve 200 people out of a van. Minimum, those are 5-ton cube vans or whatever. So it's saying from Friday through Sunday, it's the traffic from them, and then Monday through Thursday, it's all the preparation and everything. You only need to look at the pictures that I provided to see that place is groomed within an inch of its life. In fact, Mr. Novak referred to it as manicured. On the OMAFRA calculations, when you're calculating how much of the property is being used, you're supposed to use the landscaped area as well. If this is not landscaped, I don't know. What are they farming? Golf flags? I'm not sure. Because they're offering the entire property. They're showing the bedrooms, the sauna, the golf, everything. Okay. The one with the tent. Picture number. And you can clearly see from my pictures that it's a full banquet hall. I don't know why they're blacking those people out, because my pictures came off the web. They're free for everybody. But you can see also the picture of the dock offering the wedding, whatever it is. But there's also a picture of the tent. Can you go to the next page? Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. It's an outside picture. Not that one. Okay. Anyways, if you look at this picture, it's before the picture with the inside picture. You can see the guy standing here with a guitar and a microphone. Now, in the planner's documents, it says all events are inside the tent. Well, that's not true. This is the most disingenuous.
Robin, I want to make sure that Jeff is aware. You're over your 5 minutes. Jeff, does Jeff? Okay.
Okay. So it doesn't meet septic. It doesn't meet traffic. The noise. Oh, it doesn't work. Okay. Well, that's what you get for 4 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours. Hey, how many decibels in a water drip? How long can you listen to that? That's what it's like. Standing on your deck, all the birds fly away because we don't have any control when it starts. We don't have no warning. Environment belongs to them Monday to Friday, and May till the end of October is the entire time that we should be enjoying our properties, and we can't. That is not seasonal. That is 3 seasons, half the year. Economic benefit, OMAFRA clearly states that they are supposed to demonstrate and show evidence that it's secondary to the agriculture. Clearly it's not, and that the little part that is farmed is not farmed by them. So that it significantly lowers the amount of money that they're receiving from there. Why are we forcing, when all those 5 things it does not meet, why are we forcing this to work there? It just doesn't work. Another thing that OMAFRA says is that it has to be a demonstration of need. We are very fortunate here. We have golf courses and wineries all over. Our area is saturated. Has anybody checked with any of these people? Are they so booked up that we need another event menu or event space? Banquet hall is, because clearly OMAFRA says no banquet halls. 7th Concession has a winery. We got Heritage Village at the end of the road. I can hear the rodeo when they have it at the Heritage Village. So to think that I can hear and that it's not affecting the conservation area that is in between us is ridiculous. They have clearly stated this is a step to being permanent. They have a history of building first, asking questions later, or applying later. The only reason we are even here and it's not permanent is because the neighbors got together and started to complain. So Sherry, I'm going to end with your quote. When you wanted to be elected, the very last sentence you said, and an approach to planning first and then building instead of status quo of building and planning later. Well, if this is not an example of where you need to draw a line in the sand, I do not know what is.
Welcome, Jeff.
I'm Jeff Todd, Robin's sister, brother, sorry. Yeah, I'm nervous too. Anyways, all I want to ask is, Robin gave you examples of the noise. Since most of you do not live in agricultural areas or aren't aware of it, I just want you to think about what it'd be like to have the Essex Fun Fest in your neighborhood every single weekend. Okay? Wonderful events, weddings, Fun Fest, all of them are wonderful events. But do you want them next door to you every weekend? Because that's what they're going for. Thanks.
Please hit the mic there, Robin. Thank you. Moving on. Next, we have Patricia McCorman. Welcome, Patricia.
Thank you. Okay. Good afternoon, members of council and fellow stakeholders. I come to you this evening. My name is Patricia McGorman, and I am one of the original Friends of Marshfield Woods. So back in about 1998, a bunch of us citizens got together because we were concerned. We'd heard that approximately 200-acre forest, mature forest, was about to be destroyed for a golf course. So knowing that the size of the forest was significant, we got together to see what we could do to save it. And being a lot of us had not engaged in that kind of activity, we had to learn about fundraising, public awareness, different things like that. And what we've learned from that is that this entire area around this forested land and these agricultural lands is significant. It's not just about the venue for an event. It's that the traffic increase can be significant to the wildlife that's there. We know that there's been identified endangered species there, and we need to take that as significant. I had provided a slide, and I don't know that if it's available to be put up, that would be helpful. Okay, well, the slide was to show, I guess I can describe the slide because it's important. The slide showed the clearing of the forest. So the clearing of the forest happened even though it was designated as a provincially significant wetland. That is the highest designation in this province for protection of a natural environment, and that is significant. But still the clearing went on because people were claiming there's loopholes and enforcement wasn't done.
Stick to the application.
Okay.
And as much as you can, please.
What I'm trying to say is that the impacts to this area and that the landowner, I don't know if who's all involved as a landowner, but the history of the ownership, the Hearn Group, however that's constructed, has a history, an ongoing history as recent as last year of dumping fill into this provincially significant protected wetland. I have called myself to to ask for assistance to stop the dumping.
Okay, we
And
have
what
to-
I'm saying about the applicant, what I'm saying about this application is that we're already seeing that they're saying that there's going to be, by the planning application, that there's going to be 40 vehicles per day or per event is what's projected. Now, that's very hard to understand. That would be the only amount of vehicles that are attending to a significant wedding event where people are bringing flowers, people are going home at different times. Maybe they got to go take care of their kids or something like that. So we have a lot of different things, but we're increasing traffic to this area. And we're also, the picture that's missing and showing that in 2020, and the aerial photograph from the Town of Essex website mapping was that there wasn't a house there. And then in 2020, after 2020, there's a mansion that's built there. So, and then now there's an added farm fields to this property. And that's happened within the last year, I believe, from the mapping that I'm able to review. And what I'm saying is we keep giving permissions to this company that keeps violating the laws that are in place that are meant to protect not only our environment, but also the stakeholders that are living in this area, right? They have to be able to make their decisions on their investments in their homes and their communities based on the laws that are applicable to this day. And we also, and I'm going to go back to the endangered species, because we have an endangered species crisis, and bringing more traffic into this very rural, very secondary roadway is going to be a hazard to that wildlife as well. So I just wanted to say that there's been a long history of people coming out in the community to say we need to look at this as a rural landscape and value these resources and our ability to utilize these resources. Thank you.
We have Ed Jabowski. Ed?
Is this turned on? Hello? Okay. Your worship, councillor members, thank you for listening to me. I'm a resident in the area. I live on the 5th concession. I'm a retired research scientist. And I live here because I value the rural landscape and the natural features that are in the area, the quiet and so forth. I know there's downsides. There's, you know, sometimes you hear the combines going through at night in the harvest season and so forth. But I value the quiet, and I find my neighbors, for the most part, to be very pleasant and enjoyable people. I volunteer at the Nature Conservancy property that abuts the Hearns property immediately to the east. I've been doing a lot of activity there. I also spend a lot of time just walking around to enjoy the environment there. Part of my volunteer activities is to take care of that place. And, you know, sometimes I'm picking up, somebody drops some trash around. I pick up a lot of discarded, or not discarded, but a lot of those balloons, you know, from celebrations that get released and go floating off into the area.
Stick to that merits of the application, please.
Yeah. I'm very concerned about how the attitude is going here about the noise level. Like, I'm a research scientist, and I know that research scientists, they get a shiny new toy and they love it and they want to apply it to everything, and they think it's the bee's knees and it captures everything. Well, I think this new standard with, you know, so many decibels, you know, that's the shiny new toy. That quantifies how loud it is. It doesn't capture the quality of a noise problem. A gentleman here, he was trying to compare the noise level with cicadas or, you know, crickets chirping at night. I'm sorry, but listening to a dance hall is not the same thing as listening to crickets in the background. It's not the same. And to think that that is going to add to the quality of my life and my neighbor's life in the same way that listening to the crickets chirping at night is I don't know what to call it. It's insane. And you know, I've also been listening to you know, people talking about, well, this is what we intend to do. Some people touched on that, but frankly, as somebody already mentioned, you know, it's what's possible within what you're going to allow that's important. And
If any pointed comments on the application, we are well into our regular meeting. So I am at this point going to try to speed everybody up.
yeah, I appreciate that. I guess my big concern about this is that with this bylaw, if it's passed, my concern is that if they don't meet the terms that are set with this bylaw, that how is it going to be enforced? Because frankly, they've been doing this for a year and a half in violation of the existing bylaws, and bylaw enforcement is nowhere. If you want to hear crickets, there they are.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. If you could turn off the microphone there. We do have two more. John, if you could go back to the mic, if you could summarize, John, items that or concerns and things we haven't heard yet.
Thank you very much, Your Worship and Council. My name is John DeMarco. I actually live in Kingsville. My wife and I operate ourselves a small vegetable farm. But my main interest is I'm very deep into environmental issues throughout Essex County, including Essex. I collaborate with some of the people in this room on environmental issues at the county level, at the municipal level. I won't repeat what has been said, but I have to strongly reinforce what some other speakers said, is that I'm afraid the application does not meet all the criteria and the town and county bylaws. So I think the presentations that were made are selective in terms of it's easy to list criteria that are met, although even some of those are debatable. I won't go into that debate, but I'll go into some very, very clear criteria which I think are not met. And any one of these, I think, would be considered a showstopper, and any one of these, I think, would carry a lot of weight if, as somebody mentioned, if this were to go to the Ontario Land Tribunal. I'll start with the OMAFRA guidelines on permitted use at the bottom of page 18. A very clear statement: large-scale, repeated, or permanent events are not on-farm diversified uses. That's a pretty clear statement. It doesn't have to be all of those three. 200 people, is that large scale or not? You could debate. Repeated, absolutely 10 or more events per year is repeated. So there's a very, very clear contradiction with a very deliberate statement, not just, 1 out of 10 points, a very deliberate statement in the policy as something that should not be permitted, repeated events. Turning to the Town of Essex bylaw, again, I'm just focusing on some of the very clear, as I say, showstoppers. Under 8.65, page 61 of the bylaw 1037, the use, the on-farm diversified use shall be carried on exclusively by persons directly participating in the farm or residing on the farm, and a maximum of 2 other persons. So that's clear. The intent is to allow people who are farming or living on a farm to have maybe some secondary activity because maybe they're not always fully occupied by farming. Has anyone been to a wedding of 200 people that is staffed by 2 residents and 2 non-residents of the site? It's impossible. It's absolutely impossible. So there's going to be a huge number of people using the site. And by the way, probably most of them coming in their own cars, but that's a side issue. Clearly, this goes way, way beyond not only the intent, but the regulation that the activity should involve at most 2 people who are not connected with the agricultural operation. I'll come to a very important point from the County of Essex official plan, and incidentally, this applies unfortunately to the plan of subdivision, which is coming up in the regular council meeting. I won't address that now. But since I started looking into environmental issues in Essex County, the good news is I found Essex County has, I would say, very commendable, very forward-looking policies and regulations concerning restoration opportunities. That is, we all know we don't have enough natural area. The Hearn Group is protecting some of it following, the destruction for the golf course and all that. They should be commended for protecting some of our natural area, but we all know we need more. And the county plan has very clear policies to help us get more natural areas by restoration. The odd thing is, and I still can't explain how this came about, those policies and regulations are routinely ignored. And I'm going to read a small quote if I can find the right piece of paper.
You have about 20 seconds left.
Okay. 345 in the County of Essex official plan. If you're within a restoration opportunities area, which this site is clearly within such an area, you are required to carry out an environmental impact assessment, and the contents of that assessment are spelled out in our county official plan. And the planning consultant pretends to address this with one sentence. I had to search for it. Basically, if you look at the sentence, and it's in my letter to the council, they attempt to address this with some basically meaningless language to give the appearance of addressing that section of the plan, which is clearly violated. I think those are the key points. Thanks very much.
Thank you, John. And we all got your letter. We will be sure to read it if we haven't already. Our last folks registered to speak tonight, Mike and Nettie Ridley. And Mike and Nettie, please try to not speak to anything that we've already heard.
Over.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor Bondi and Council, for allowing me to speak. My name is Mike Pichet. My wife here is Nettie, and we both live in Colchester. Just for a moment, put yourself in the position of living quietly in your home. You've been there for many, many years, and all of a sudden, every weekend, your family faces acute disruption, continuous evening noise. Imagine having moved into that property you considered as your refuge. You were going to be there for years, and all of a sudden, your quiet, provincially significant area, natural heritage, turns into be just the opposite. The idea for most of us of being besieged by noisy, disrespectful neighbors, even short-term, is abhorrent. Yet this is exactly what the Hearn Lodge neighbors experience on a regular basis most of the summer. One has to question a situation so dire that in order to resolve it, some people have to move. There is no other choice for them to live their lives. In Colchester, we faced many issues with short-term rentals. With STRs, the disruptive issues are created by the tenants, not the property owners. No owner would intentionally rent with knowledge and acceptance that a tenant will behave inappropriately or hold wild parties. Yet, however, in the case of Hearn Lodge, a party is in fact exactly the plan, put into place by the owners, knowing full well that there will be disruption and noise because that's what it is. It's a party for profit, a party to which the neighbors are unintentionally invited, whether they wish to partake or not. The owner has been continuously circumventing and ignoring the rules of licensing in the town of Essex bylaws. They're here tonight 2 years after they started this business instead of the other way around. This should have taken place in early 2023, this meeting. Rules and bylaws are meant for everyone. A bylaw zoning amendment is being requested so this business might finally begin to follow the rules. Why would we allow this, knowing full well that they most likely will continue to step outside of acceptable boundaries as they've been doing for years? And I'd like to ask through the mayor,
Just wondering if there's,
one question. Can the town administration advise this council tonight how many temporary noise or special event permits have been requested by this applicant over the last 2 years? Do we have any idea where we walked into this meeting tonight not knowing how many had been applied for and given to this outfit? Do we know?
Could it go back and forth, but we will answer that at the end.
Okay, so, I mean, the town of Essex is on a path of climate change awareness and environmental progressiveness. You've spent countless hours in research on your climate change adaptation plan. It's now time to continue making sure the environment comes first, that people come first, and that neighbors are not displaced from their homes. We hope this council can take all of this information to heart with serious consideration and make a sound decision to place a hold on any decision further so that there's more time to study this matter. Thank you very much.
Nettie, did you have anything to add or? Okay. Okay. All right. So that was the end of all of our delegates, the representatives speaking. At this point, I will open it up to council. In order to get through each council member, I encourage council members to at first speak once, and then we may be able to get back, but try to get all of your points out at once. And I will make sure that every council member does have the opportunity to speak or ask questions. Okay. Questions, members of council? We did have a question from the delegates to administration. How many noise bylaw exemptions have 6675 requested?
So through the chair, in 2024, the proponents requested a special occasion permit and noise bylaw exemption. At that time, they were told that they didn't qualify because of the zoning issues. So at that time, they started bringing the process to change their zoning. Since then, there's been no applications made because they were aware that they weren't zoned properly.
I would like to ask the members of the audience to refrain from speaking up so that we can have decorum in our meeting, please. Questions from members of council? I just want to say tonight we will be receiving the report. And if a member of council wishes to bring forward, we can postpone, we can deny, we can do 1 or 2 readings, or we can do 3 readings. Those are, I think, the options for council. Deputy Mayor Shepley. Oh, hang on. Director Malanjuco is going to speak to that.
I don't think 3 readings is a valid choice decision tonight, because we would only do 3 readings if there's exigent circumstances that would require it. I think in order to have 3 readings, we need a valid reason to go to 3 readings, and I don't think we have that in front of us. So I think the options that were given to you minus the 3 reading option are what you have in front of you today.
Director Malanjuco, Deputy Mayor Shepley.
Madam Mayor, I agree 3 readings would be ridiculous tonight. We received some information just as we walk in the door. We've received a lot of information from all of you people tonight. So to make a decision on 3 readings, I wouldn't be in support of that either myself. I mean, I do have a couple questions and a couple of comments. One, I grew up on a farm, so I am a farm boy. That's where I grew up, and I can't understand the peace and quiet of growing up on a farm. And I do understand the difference. Now I live in town, so I have noise constant, and I get the noise is the issue for me. What I'm wondering is, if the Hearns group, they have their hunt club right now, if they were to have a hunt party every weekend, same situation with band or a DJ for their hunters, and they stayed under the noise bylaw, would that be acceptable?
Which member of administration would like to answer that question? Director Chadwick.
Thank you, Mayor Bondi. Through you to Deputy Mayor. So the use as an event venue, whether for weddings or for hunting parties, is not permitted under the zoning bylaw currently because it cannot meet the on-farm diversified use regulations. And so in that theory, in that regard, those types of for commercial or for profit events would not be permitted either.
I have a few other questions. You know, the parking, I can do math, so I did the cars myself. The math wasn't working for me that way. Where the tent is erected when you guys erect the tent, I don't know if anybody can give me any indication. If it was in the report, I missed it. Is it on a cement pad or is it on gravel? Cement pad? Okay, they're nodding yes, so. Okay, I guess for me, one of the things that I mean, there's lots to dig into here. I'm wondering why the tent? Why would they've not been able to build a building there? Because to me, a building would certainly take care of the noise and would eliminate that noise complaint problem. Probably would eliminate a lot of the groups in here tonight, I would assume. I'm just wondering if that's not an option.
Chadwick.
Again, through you to Deputy Mayor. So a permanent structure, again, with council's approval would be, or could be something that could be erected. My understanding, and if the applicant wants to speak to it further, is that, you know, they wanted to come into compliance with the zoning bylaw at this point in time. Should council have appetite for the use in an enclosed permanent building, it would be something, again, that application would need to be brought forward to council for decision-making. The application before you is not for a permanent structure, so would require a new application, which we would also refer to support studies that would be revisited, new studies that may be required, a whole new application, but certainly something that could be applied for.
Appreciate that answer. And I think that, I mean, if it was me, that would be the route I would be looking at taking. I think it would be much better, and the noise mitigation would be immensely better than a tent that when it's 80, 90 degrees, you likely have the flaps open, I'm sure. I understand where you're coming from. The other thing, I don't see any notes in here from IRCA. So while I value what you're saying, but the local group that does that, they didn't supply any notes in response against this. The county, again, same thing. They support it. So it's a tough situation we're in, and I'm going to continue to listen to everybody tonight. And it's again, for me, it's the noise. I struggle with the noise aspect of it. And that's probably the only piece of it that I struggle with.
And Director Malanjukulo, then Councillor Guerin, Councillor Hammond.
For you to Deputy Mayor. So the Conservation Authority actually did supply and did provide comment. And so is a part of the presentation tonight, was a part of the report, was a part of the public agenda as well. No objections from IRCA, no concerns with stormwater management. The development did not require a permit from IRCA. The development is proposed outside the area of the parcel affected by the limit of regulated area. And therefore, there's no objections from IRCA. In terms of the county, administration has had lengthy, I should say not lengthy, but has initiated consultation with the county through the manager of planning services as early as January of this year, and had we'll say monthly touch points with the manager of planning services. We had been not only consulting with the manager in terms of whether or not this use required an official plan amendment, but also in terms of the regulations for on-farm diversified uses, in that they are delegated down to administration, the town of Essex planning. The questions posed at the time that we worked through together with the county have all been addressed. In terms of traffic, we explained essentially what was going to be provided as a part of the application, and as well as the
environmental impacts, we all agreed moving forward that a zoning bylaw amendment application would only be warranted and not anything further. In terms of the circulation of the notice for ZBA, no official comments were submitted by the county by the deadline. However, just to confirm, consultation has occurred extensively with the county.
One final follow-up with that. So if this were to go to the OLT, when administration supports it, IRCA supports it, the county supports it, the likelihood of it being overturned, if we denied it and it went to the OLT, the likelihood of it being overturned in the Hearns Group's favor is very likely based on that information. And I've been looking through the OLT and I've seen generally when that's the situation that arises, we would lose in that case, and we would spend taxpayer money that would cost all the taxpayers of the municipality to defend that. That's just something that should be noted.
CAO Drusevich.
Through the chair, so we wouldn't be able to issue an opinion on that. Council would obtain legal counsel and proceed through that route.
And just maybe Deputy Mayor Shepley, maybe you weren't aware, but we did have the Ambar fireworks file on the 6th concession. Administration was in support. Council was not. At the end of the day, council won. I wanted to make sure everybody knew that. We've had success. Councillor Guerin.
I'm going to try to roll through. I got 6 or 7 here. I want to ask. I'm going to start with Director Chadwick had mentioned about question about having an event on that site and a permit for it. We've had in the past private properties applicants apply for relief to the noise bylaw to have parties in their backyard. And we've done that. What would the difference be in this particular case?
To Councillor Guerin. So the difference here is that an event for your family, to have a backyard wedding for your family, is different than an event for profit or for gain.
Thank you. To Mr. Novak, who did the testing, I had one question. When you did the testing, what was the atmosphere of the place? Were the walls down? Were they up? Were the speakers directed, to the front of the property, the back of the property, the side of the properties? Was there 200 people in the event at the event, or was it 50 people? Being in the event in business myself, I know that playing music to 50 people is different than trying to play music to people. So I'm just wondering, were walls up or down? Which way were the speakers being amplified? How many people approximately at the events?
Yeah, in our initial report that we did, we made recommendations in terms of the maximum noise level permissible in order to meet the bylaw. And we also made recommendations of the placement of the speakers. So my understanding is that all of the events that are held now, since our report, use the house speakers and the house equipment. So a DJ does not bring in their own equipment. The speakers are positioned such that they face towards the pond, which is down, not towards the nearest neighbor. I instructed them not to do that, and I instructed them not to face to the building such that would result in any reflections. During the testing, it was a very hot and humid day. I believe that the curtains were up, so it was representative of a worst case scenario. And I don't know if you had any other questions. I don't know the number of people though.
To bylaw, couple questions. Is the area that's being proposed or being presented by Mr. Boer's presentation, is the area, in your opinion, being fudged? Or is it in fact the proper amount of area that they do have to work with when we're comparing farmable land versus the event? I'm trying to get to if the farming is the main use or not.
Madam Mayor, the numbers that were presented to you by the planning department are correct. They fall in sync even with the building departments. So yes.
Then with respect to town hiring third party to do noise and vibration assessment, ecological policy, and regulatory compliances, Is this typically what we do on any type of application like this when it comes before us? Where'd the money come from? I'm just trying to figure out where the reasoning came between having to go for third party versus, is that what we typically do?
Madam Mayor, you're asking third-party bylaw? Like,
We did third party reports.
oh, third-party
Third
report.
reports. This is to administration, third party
Yeah.
reports.
Go ahead, Lori.
Counselor Guerin, so the question in terms of who pays for third-party reports, and as a part of any application, planning application, to council to seek an amendment to the zoning bylaw, one would be required, if deemed appropriate, to complete a certain report. In this case, we requested as a part of a complete application noise report. The third-party review, because we do not have a noise or acoustics engineer on staff, is paid for by the applicant, not taxpayers, as drawn from something called the deposit as a part of the application.
To include then the third party reports are paid for by the applicant. And I just have a couple more through you, Mayor. There's been some talk about if this was permitted, they could do 52 days a year, they could do every day if they wanted to. Do we have anything in our toolbox that would limit the amount of events we can approve? If we approved up to 10, as which they're requesting, can we limit them to just doing 10? Can we limit them to doing only one a weekend or one a week or one day a week for up to 10? Is that even something that's possible?
Through you, Councillor Guerin, Deputy Mayor. So in the draft zoning bylaw, what we can regulate, and I will defer to others, we can regulate the seasonal aspect being from May 1st to October 31st. So you are being faced with the question of, do you approve the use? We are proposing that the use, or rather the applicant is proposing, and we would draft the bylaw and have drafted for a seasonal timeframe, but also that it be temporary in nature for 6 months from the date of the final passing of the bylaw. In terms of number of events, I will defer that to our Director of Legal to respond to that.
The chair, I don't think that the bylaw itself has that ability in there for us to arbitrarily do that. I do though think that it could be something that we could agree to with the proponent. If the proponent wants to limit their use, and we could limit it that way, but I don't think I don't think we could arbitrarily set that number based on the bylaw.
Yeah, so last question I have, and it doesn't necessarily have to be answered tonight, but I would like to know if if noise seems to be, to me, sounds to me like noise is the biggest complaint of this whole thing. You live next to it, you hear it. People going there to get married and having the rice and having maybe been a guitar guy for 15 minutes for a ceremony, I don't think is going to be the main issue here. It's not going to keep people up at night. But when it comes to noise, if this was to be permitted, could we in fact have the applicant have on site at their cost a town bylaw enforcer or a town third-party hired enforcer for a minimum of 4 hours, again, at the cost of the applicant to the end of to make sure that the noise mitigation can be dealt with on site and not dealt with by having to call OBP, having to call enforcement, and then we get there and it's already done.
So through the chair, again, that's something that would be outside of our normal practice and probably something that's not feasible and probably overly arbitrary. But what we do that council may or may not be aware of is when we receive our noise bylaw exemption requests, we can set parameters within those. So we set the noise limit and we set the time limits. So we can control the amount of volume based on the requests. So our response to the request can control the amount of volume.
On that point, yeah, I'm just trying to find a way, if there is, to eliminate the residents having to worry and for us to for them having to continually call when they think it may be a level that's exceeding, but it may not be, but it may be. Just trying to figure a way that could be nullified on the spot, on site.
Through the chair, I know, Director Chadwick might want to speak more to this, but I know that in the past 2 years, there have been calls of bylaw, and bylaw and OPP have both attended. And in most circumstances, all but one, they determined that the noise was not above our restricted limits.
Going through. We will keep going. Counselor Hammond, and then I have Counselor McGuire Blaze.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. I got a couple of problems with the last line report here. There's some discrepancies that I just can't seem to overlook. Let's start with the tent capacity at 200. Advertises for 200 plus, but on the building review, it states limited occupancy at 120 max on page 45. Big discrepancy there. Also 30-40 vehicles, parking for 70 and overflow. Another one that bugs me is on page 23, figure 18. It illustrates and it mentions that the closest resident is 230 meters from the house. Yet on pages 20, 24, 35, and any other page I can find, it references at 320 meters. So I have concerns with those, and as well the noise measurements. I'm not sure where exactly these measurements are being taken from, but I don't imagine any of them have been taken from outside or inside the neighbor's house to get a real sense of what's going on here. As for the delegates here that live on the 5th and the 6th, I have to remind you that things are changing. Life goes on, and our world's getting smaller. Our cities are getting bigger, our towns are getting bigger, our villages are getting bigger, our hamlets are turning into villages. Nobody's exempt from this happening. So in order for you to preserve your sanctuary that you have out there, you're going to have a stronger means of doing it. Maybe you want to give the land back to the indigenous and they will protect you from it. But get ready. Change is coming. That's all I have to say. Oh, one question for the delegates here. For the applicants, how many more weddings are we planning on having this year, and how many have you got booked for next year?
Counselor Hammond, Miss Lazaline has a few questions I think she wants to answer in regards to your first questions, and then if she can't answer the question about events, then somebody else from 6655 can.
Thank you, Mayor. Through to Councillor Hammond. The number, in fact, is the 220 meters separation distance. The noise equipment, I'll let Dr. Novak speak to. Occupancy will be worked out with the building department, but at this point, the tent has a capacity of 200. Basically, that's my answer.
Yeah, in terms of the noise measurements that were made, unless invited, we're not permitted, obviously, to go on the other property. So the measurements were made at the property line, or 5 meters from the property line, which is about 170 meters from the tent, if you will, and about 50 meters from the house. So the levels that we were reported were at the property line. But the table that I had in the second memo predicted what the levels would be due to the attenuation from the additional 50 meters of distance, et cetera. So those numbers are given as well. And I do want to point out that the noise bylaw, actually, as it is written, the levels that are in there, those are indoor sound levels. We're taking a worst case in favor of the neighbors and predicting and showing what they are in the outdoor. So we're being conservative in the favor of the neighbors, not the outdoor.
There, we're going to keep the meeting running very quickly. We have people waiting for our regular meeting out in the hall.
So just to clarify a couple things, 230 meters is the distance. I think in the Lasaline report, on a few places, the numbers were transcribed to 320, but it's 230 and it's 770 feet. I think it works out to, or 777. The number of events, there was 1 in 2023, there was 8 in 2024, and there's 3 so far in 2025 with 9 booked. So 6 more this year. Okay? So always below 10 and annually.
Thank you very much.
And
Okay.
just- oh, one other item. The capacity of the tent is 380 people. We only allow 200. We only advertise for less than 200. We don't want large wedding venue. It's just a boutique wedding venue, and it's 200 people max.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to Councillor McGuire Blaze, then we have Councillor Allard Mady, and then Bondi.
Do this one, I don't know. Okay, scooch over. So through the chair, I want to acknowledge all the concerns that were raised here tonight, and we appreciate you coming out. And I too grew up on a farm. I grew up on a farm for 30 years, so I am a farm girl. I owned a farm, but I now live in Ward 1. So I understand the noise level and how it carries, and what you might have been used to, and now what you're used to has changed. So I respect your concerns. However, it's important to note that the applicant has taken steps to address your concerns, including commissioning a professional acoustic study that indicates sound levels experienced by the surrounding community are within the town's acceptable limits. The property is more than 300 meters, I think, from the nearest residence and is naturally buffered by trees and berms, which do also help reduce noise significantly. To date, the only significant concern that I've heard is it's too loud for my yard. But I haven't seen or any objective proof to support that claim as of yet. In contrast, we do have the acoustic study from qualified firm confirming acceptable noise levels. We've heard from our own municipal administration that the Hearns have made every effort to mitigate the impact of sound. It's also worth noting that it's reported that multiple calls have been made to OPP. We have not seen an official report from OPP, and we have not received the 30 plus calls that you're saying have been made to our bylaw. We have not seen a report suggesting those high numbers either. So I can't take those. That's hard for me to take into consideration if we can't see it. Because of everything, I support granting a temporary zoning change. This approach allows us to assess the property's operations using real evidence, not assumptions. I'd like to see, I think Councillor Guerin had a great idea with having a bylaw officer on site. We do have new devices that can now record our sound, and I would like to see bylaw officers with those devices at the event. So that way we have actual numbers and actual facts. I believe this is an ideal location, despite the audience here today for this event. It's remote and it's beautiful, and you've all agreed that it is a beautiful location. A well-managed event space adds real value to our community. I can see the benefits for local businesses from the Colchester Hotel to nearby wineries and shops in Harrow. If done responsibly, this kind of economic activity supports tourism, entrepreneurship, and growth across our region. I think it's a good event for Essex County as a whole and our municipality of Essex. So I will be in support of passing the two readings tonight, and I would like to make that motion.
Director Malandrukala wants to, okay, make a motion to have 3 readings. I will come back to you. Oh, first and second, sorry. Okay, I will come back to you, Councillor McGuire Blaze, because not every council member has even had an opportunity to. I'm sorry to the delegates out there waiting. Councillor Allard and then Councillor Mady.
Just quick, I hear both sides. My heart is with the people that are hearing the noise. Justify the noise just by a meter. That thumping sound that they talk about, I can understand that. Buses, you say the buses to the mall. Is it that general place that you go to is into Windsor with the buses?
Example of people that have venue, wedding event there or another type of, event may not want people driving out, and they may arrange for a shuttle bus to come from different locations in Windsor, such as the mall or hotels that people are staying at.
So people are staying outside of Essex.
Some of them, and then transporting in. That's why we have less vehicles than you would think.
I feel that this is a one-shot spot and everything around it is getting the bad of it. And the town of Essex and the town of Harrow, they're bypassing by going to Windsor. Thank you.
Councillor Mady and then Mayor Bondi.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. To start, I can't make the promise I'm going to be quick. I don't know if we're getting to the point where we might want to come back and have another standalone meeting for this or not. Seeing as how we're already trying to make a motion, we all haven't had a chance to speak yet. We might be getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. I could start with my questions. I have, it looks like about 10 questions that came up. My first question is with the definition in our bylaw over what perceptible noise is, as opposed to our noise bylaw that has a unacceptable noise above a certain threshold. In our zoning bylaw, it's much more strict in that it is saying that it's perceptible noise. How do we change that definition to allow it to be much higher level?
Just to clarify, we don't have a definition for perceptible noise in the zoning bylaw. Noise, when it becomes an issue, is addressed through the noise bylaw. So whether it's perceptible or not is based on the noise bylaw and based on ministry standards in this situation.
So I think we're looking at two different things. So I think the perceptible noise wording has to do with the business that's operating at the property. So I don't think that the perceptible noise wording is not contemplating something like an event. It's contemplating the purposes of the operation. So it could be an event, could be farming, could be an industrial, some sort of industrial purpose. It's contemplating the actual activity that's going on there. The noise bylaw exemption is a more broad, the noise bylaw is a more broad bylaw that has to do with events, right? So I think the reason why there's two different standards is because the standard that is in the additional use bylaw has to do with operations, a more broader, generic type of definition. Whereas the noise bylaw is meant to address specific things such as event. So they're both doing their own things. So you could have a facility that gets the exemption as far as an additional use goes, that is allowed to hold events, but they're restricted by the noise bylaw to noise levels at that event. So they both do different things. They operate in different ways. So they're not meant to be the same.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Sorry, through you, Mayor. On two presentations, though, we had it highlighted and underlined, the term perceptible noise, and then it was redefined as our noise bylaw. If we could pull the presentation back up, might be able to see that.
I think what you're trying to say, Councillor Mady, is how do you control what we define as perceptible noise, being the noise bylaw exemption? How do you control what that level is? It's defined directly in the noise bylaw exemption. So if council wanted to change what that level was, they would reopen that bylaw up for amendments. So there's the level defined, right, at a decibel level, and I could pass what that acceptable level is, and I don't know it offhand, right? But if council said, you know what, that level is too loud for us, based on resident feedback and whatnot, then what it would be an amendment to the noise bylaw. to change the decibel level. Do you follow what I'm saying?
Thank you. Yeah, and through you, Madam Mayor, I do follow what you're saying. Maybe I'm not being clear enough. What I'm asking is that one of the tests in the OMAFRA application there, in the on-farm diversified use, was the perceptible noise at the boundary limit. Now, we've changed that definition to fit our noise bylaw and talking about the noise level at a dwelling, at a sensitive noise receptor now. I don't think it's the same thing. In the ZBA, when it's underlined like that, I don't see that being the same thing.
Just for clarification, you're asking which trumps? Like, does OMAFRA trump or does our noise bylaw trump? Because OMAFRA is saying no noise at all at the property line, and our bylaw says you can have some.
Yeah, so through the chair, I think we're misunderstanding. That's also a misunderstanding. So we're looking at two different standards for two different things. So the perceptible noise standard has to do with, does the volume come to, and it's a very vague standard. That was the problem with our noise bylaw prior to our amendments this year. Our noise bylaw this year used to have, in our noise bylaw this year, it used to say that if the noise was a nuisance, then you could be fined. And there was no standard for nuisance. So we changed it so that there was a decibel level. So now our noise bylaw has a decibel level set. The perceptible noise definition is a vague definition. And it's a vague definition on purpose, but also it's hard to enforce. So that the perceptible noise definition is just used to determine whether or not we can allow a different sort of use at the property. It's controlled later with our noise bylaw. So the use can be allowed, but then once it's allowed, if it conflicts with our noise bylaw, then it needs to stop. So our noise bylaw limits once it's allowed, that perceptible noise then can't be above our noise bylaw. So our noise bylaw will prohibit the volume. And what CAO Jerusevich was trying to say is, with our power as a council, if we determine that our decibel level that we've set this year is too loud, we can amend our noise bylaw later to then reduce the volume that property can create.
Law Officer Kevin Carter, manager.
Madam Mayor, this may help as well for sound. You got OMAFA and you got the Ministry of Environment, Conservation, and Parks. They basically control two different types of noise complaints. OMAFRA, if you live beside a farm and Hank the farmer's out there with his John Deere at 4 o'clock in the morning and you're complaining to the bylaw, we would have to tell you there is no violation. OMAFA protects farmers. They're immune from noise, dust, basically everything. The ministry, the MOECP, does the opposite. That would be the case for tonight. They regulate what is an acceptable noise decibel for people living next door to other people, as well noise generated amplified noise. This may help as well. If you read the report, the noise report by both Hearn's professional as well as our third party professional, they're saying the same thing. When Hearn sets up the mic, the speakers, the measurement is 3 meters from the speaker, you'll read 90 decibels. You won't see that in our bylaw. 90 decibels, 3 meters from the speakers. We rate decibel readings from the point of reception. So whoever's complaining, we go there. We don't go in the house, even though the ratings are for in the home. We're outside their home. And I could tell you, we have not come to that point where we would lay a charge or found so far that there's violations. I just hope that helps.
Council, I just want to take a pause and make sure that everybody's aware. The delegates are all waiting in the hall and they were told that we would be done approximately 7. So we have a couple options. We can keep going, but we do have a lot of other delegates. Or we can see if there's a seconder for Councillor McGuire Blaze's motion to have 2 readings. I do want Councillor McGuire Blaze to know that many council members still haven't even had a chance to ask questions. So putting that motion forward, of course you can do it, but I don't think we're done here, but we have another meeting. So where are we now is Councillor McGuire Blaze can put forward a motion, or we can continue for a little bit, but we do have delegates waiting in the hall.
I don't know if my mic. I'm gonna have 2 mics. Well, I think everybody had a chance to speak except for you, Madam Mayor, so I'd like to. Oh, he has more.
Councillor Mady has several. I believe he has several. This is in his ward.
Yeah, so I don't understand, why are we stopping? We're in the middle of it and all these people are here. I know, but we should finish this meeting. We should finish our question period at the very, very least.
We've never gone through something like this. To keep putting a regular meeting off is putting it off and putting it off. And we have other delegates that are waiting. We have a whole probably 2 hours. Director Malanjukulu?
I propose, it sounds like Councilor McGuire Blaze wants to extend the meeting. I propose that she bring her motion to extend the meeting. If that's not passed, then we can go ahead and look for another motion, which potentially could be a motion to postpone this meeting to a future date.
Sure. Put that motion. Extend the meeting.
We have a motion to extend the meeting. Supported by Councillor Guerin. Comments to the motion to extend the meeting? I will just say I will not be supporting to extend the meeting. I think that this topic is worthy of a whole other meeting night where we listen and we answer questions and we garner more feedback. If we extend it, it's just still going to be rushed. I have about 15, 20 questions. As head of this council, I have many questions. We could be here all night, and I do not want to disrespect our delegates waiting in the hall. We have some from several from Colchester. We have some from the wind turbine, which is another important thing. So we owe this file the respect it's going to get. And if we extend that meeting, it's not going to happen. We're not giving it the respect it deserves. So I will be asking for a recorded vote.
Request a recorded vote. Mayor Bondi, how do you vote?
Oh, Councillor Guerin has a question.
Councillor Guerin.
You're right. I mean, it is disrespectful to the ones that are here for the special. It's also disrespectful for the applicant and for everyone else that's delegates tonight. We probably should have had this meeting, a special meeting on its own date. I don't know why we figured we could get this done in an hour. So we're putting this on ourselves. So that's why I'm supporting the motion to continue the meeting.
Mayor Bondi has requested a recorded vote. Mayor Bondi, how do you vote? Mayor Bondi opposes. Deputy Mayor Shepley, how do you vote? Deputy Mayor Shepley supports. Councillor Allard, how do you vote? Councillor Allard opposes. Councillor McGuire Blaze, how do you vote?
Support.
Councillor McGuire Blaze supports. Councillor Guerin, how do you vote?
Support.
Councillor Guerin supports. Councillor Hammond, how do you vote?
Oppose.
Councillor Hammond opposes. Councillor Mady, how do you vote? Councillor Mady opposes. So by a vote of 4-3, the motion is defeated.
Thank you, Chair Shepley. At this point, I'd like to make a motion that we postpone this discussion to a standalone meeting. We invite everybody that is registered tonight back so that this meeting gets the worthy discussion that it deserves and that our regular agenda can start after a bathroom break.
Is there a seconder for the motion? Seconded by Councillor Hammond. Any questions to the motion?
Recorded vote as well.
Now, any questions to the motion? Councillor McGuire Blaze.
When we come back for this new meeting, are we gonna sit through all of this again?
So through the chair, I think not only the date of the next meeting, but also the parameters around it need to be determined between council and administration following this meeting, but we would not be repetitive. We don't allow repetitive information. It's going to be new information, additional. So everybody who asked a question, I think we'll discuss it, but everybody who asked a question today on council, that was their question. Whoever gets their additional questions will ask their additional questions, and we'll proceed as if this meeting was continuing.
So through the chair,
Where, please?
so you're going to allow other delegates to come and speak, and then you're not going to allow council to speak to that?
No additional delegates will be speaking. No.
Any other questions? Seeing none, Councillor Bondi's asked for a recorded vote. I'll turn it over to Director Bellinger-Globe.
Mayor Bondi, how do you vote? Mayor Bondi supports. Deputy Mayor Shepley, how do you vote? Deputy Mayor Shepley supports. Councillor Allard, how do you vote? Councillor Allard supports. Councillor McGuire-Blaze, how do you vote?
Support.
Councillor McGuire-Blaze supports. Councillor Guerin, how do you vote? Councillor Guerin supports. Councillor Hammond, how do you vote? Councillor Hammond supports. Councillor Meady, how do you vote? Councillor Meady supports. The motion is carried unanimously.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I will seek a motion to adjourn. Councillor Meady, Councillor Guerin, any questions? All in favor? That's carried. We will start our regular council meeting at 7:30.